Four girls wake up in a nice sandy beach. The weather's nice, the water's lovely, and life is good, is what I would say if these girls weren't castaways. Ahoy there, ahoy! They are castaways. Anyway, it's time for them to introduce themselves. This short-haired girl is Asuka from Class C, also on the basketball and track team. The blonde is Shion from Class 2B. She likes to play piano, and she has a dog named Arnold. The bespectacled chick from Class A is Mutsu, and she's always held the #1 spot in her class. She's never been late. She's good at memorizing and whoa, hold your horses, Mutsu. This isn't an interview. Lastly, the twin tail girl is Homare from Class F. That's it? Oh, you want to know more about her? Well, let's see. Oh, right. This isn't the first time she got stranded. Stranded? We're stranded? Shouts the other three girls. Surprise, I guess? 20 hours earlier, Homare was dreaming about her father. He has taught her every survival tip, from self-defense to eating animals and mentionables. When Homare woke up, she found herself stared at by three girls. They were in the middle of the ocean, standing on some huge debris, and geez, they're thirsty. Asuka had the guts to say they had plenty of water. Did she mean seawater? Basically, you cannot drink that because it has salt that will absorb the moisture in your body. This would just dehydrate you until you die. Suddenly, several fish started jumping nearby. Grabbing a rod, Homare fearlessly aimed at one fish. She then took off her blouse? What? She wrapped it around the fish, then crushed it. If you think she's going to eat it, nope. She squeezed the juices out of it. So you want some? Nope, not at all. Meanwhile, Homare said flying fish signify that land is nearby. Although all they see is the horizon, Mutsu calculated the probability of it using the Pythagorean theorem, which proved that what they saw was only around 4 or 5 kilometers. Asuka was impressed by Mutsu's brilliance. Of course, she is. She's wearing glasses. On the other hand, Shion could no longer take this as she was dying of thirst. They're delicate, unlike Fish Juice Girl. Said Fish Juice Girl made her lie down, open her mouth, and close her eyes. Asuka freaked out when Homare took off her undies and stood above Shion. Was she? Oh, she was. Homare assured Asuka that it sterilized when fresh, which didn't assure her at all. Because of all the ruckus, Homare missed Shion's mouth. Delicate Shion was still waiting, entirely clueless. Night fell and no rescue happened. This had been their first and only field trip, but it got so messed up. Well, what other choice did they have but to sleep it through despite the danger lurking beneath the waters? The next day, Shion saw a small island. With a current, they'd miss it, so they had no choice but to swim. They're probably right, but Homare knows this would be difficult, especially since a tiger shark was swimming not far behind. But she kept it a secret so the girls wouldn't lose their wits. But a secret couldn't be hidden forever, as Asuka recognizes the shark quickly. In a state of panic, the three girls rushed to the shore while Homare calmly got her phone and threw the battery at the shark. The shark was slightly electrocuted, causing it to swim away. It's good that Homare chose to use old model phones. Finally, relatively safe, they couldn't help but wonder, is this island really safer? They're here on this isolated island without shelter, food, or water. Asuka asks Homare about the stranded thing, and she explains that she and her dad got stranded in different places in the adventures. She's a pro, Asuka surmises. So what now? Mutsu then falls to her knees due to dehydration, but her pulse is still normal. Because of this, Homare volunteers to find a water source while she orders the rest to collect washed-up water bottles. Suddenly, she grabs something flying around and eats it like nothing happened. Homare says there are 5 ways to obtain water, from animals and plants, purification, distillation, rainwater, and finding a water source. Among all those, the last one is the most probable, so for now, Mutsu can collect all her saliva and swallow it, so she can stay sane. But Mutsu's mouth is dry, so it's impossible for her, until Homare puts her mouth into hers. What? Mutsu even gets a bonus insect leg from the locust Homare ate earlier. My first kiss tasted of locust, is all Mutsu can say. In hopes of finding water, Homare and Asuka enter the forest while Shion tends to Mutsu. They've only been walking for a few minutes, but Asuka is already complaining she's tired, while Homare didn't ask her to come in the first place. Just then, Homare sees a sawfly, meaning there might be water nearby. Meanwhile, Shion tells Mutsu she doesn't trust Homare, despite saving them from a shark. I think Shion's just still salty about the fish juice. On the contrary, Mutsu finds Homare okay. As they talk, Shion realizes Mutsu might be uncomfortable lying on the sand, so she searches the beach for a workable pillow. Returning from her quest, Shion brings a dried coconut. Mutsu says it must have drifted on this island because Homare has mentioned there aren't any coconuts here. On the other hand, Shion can't believe she's actually holding a coconut because the one she got from Hawaii is green. Shion's a rich kid. But in that case, that only means this has plenty of water inside it. Mutsu suggests they share it with the others, but Shion is like waiting for something else from Mutsu. Shion gets closer to Mutsu with those puppy eyes, revealing her praise kink. I mean, she loves hearing she's a good girl. Mutsu is kind enough to show gratitude, though she thinks Shion's a lot of work. Going back to Homare and Asuka, Homare discovers a damp land that must be a stream if the rain ever falls. Perhaps if they dig enough, they might have water, but Asuka is getting lightheaded to help Homare. Homare realizes this too, so she hands over a cloth to Asuka with soil inside it. If you squeeze it, water comes out. Asuka is delighted and thinks this is the best water she's ever had, but somehow, she feels guilty for sucking it up and offers some to Homare. However, Homare declines and says she still has another sock. Sock? You mean this is her sock? Oh boy. Meanwhile, Shion's dried coconut is, well, dry. There's no water inside it, so there's no other way to save Mutsu from dying. It may be too much to ask, but Shion wants Mutsu to say yes. She requests that if ever she manages to pee, Mutsu will drink it so she can survive. Mutsu is flattered seeing how caring Shion is and promises that she will. Fortunately, it rains enough for them to collect water, and there's no need to drink someone's urine. Please. Homare suggests they build their shelter as soon as they are reunited, which should be a priority. However, Asuka complains they don't have the energy to do that since they're all hungry. Well, if they want food. After a few minutes of foraging, Homare brings them a nutritional meal, something gooey in a jar, cicadas, a sea urchin, and seaweed. The girls aren't impressed, but you're on a deserted island. To be fair, Asuka suggests they play rock, paper, scissors. The winner can pick what to eat. In the first round, Shion wins and chooses the sea urchin, the most edible. Homare opens it for her, and it's the sweetest thing she's ever tasted since coming here. Ah, uni, my beloved. Asuka has eyes on the seaweed, but she loses to Mutsu, who coincidentally picks it. It's pretty hard to bite into, but it tastes okay. Having only the jar and cicadas to choose from, Asuka grabs the jar after winning against Homare. By the looks of it, it seems like blueberry jam, so Asuka excitedly munches on it without smelling it first. Not long after, Asuka throws up as the jam is already stale. Ew. The cicadas are all that's left, and Homare enjoys eating them as they taste like shrimp. But Asuka still refuses. They will really die if they keep complaining. More so, the sun is already setting and they have no choice but bear the cold night since they prioritized getting food over building a shelter. Lesson learned. Listen to the survival expert. The next day, the girls start building their shelters. Asuka is getting worried because there are still no signs of rescuers. However, Homare has been handling the situation quite well, as if she has become the master of this island. Aside from that fact, Asuka is terribly hungry. Thinking Homare will find food for her again if she throws a tantrum, Asuka cries like a toddler. Despite her show, Homare refuses, while Shion and Mutsu are disgusted by her act. Asuka keeps slacking off instead of helping them out. So much for an athlete, eh? Luckily, Homare mentions they're out of vines, so she will search in the forest. Thinking they might find some edibles there, Asuka volunteers to go with her. While roaming the forest, Asuka sees a plant that looks like taro or potato leaves. They can't be so sure, but Asuka is so excited she pulls it out of the soil. It somehow looks like either taro or potato, but Homare isn't so certain about it. Still, Asuka wants to take a bite despite Homare's warnings it might be poisonous. If Asuka insists, they shall do a hatch or edibility test. Homare learned this from her father. You will cut the food in half and then test it on your skin. If it irritates you, it's probably inedible. Excitedly, Asuka offers her bottom skin to test the tuber. Homare forcefully pushes the root crop on Asuka's butt cheek without hesitation. They're supposed to wait 15 minutes until it shows side effects, but Asuka's skin quickly becomes itchy. Confirmed, it's poisonous. A night-scented lily is not to be eaten, or you'll get paralyzed. Wink. Still, Asuka is hungry and useless. Suddenly, a cicada flies near her. She catches it instantly, but does not know what to do next, until it escapes from her grasp. Fortunately, Homare captures it, casually flicks off its head, and gives it to Asuka. She mentions again that it tastes like shrimp, and surprisingly, Asuka agrees. After thinking about her normally lavish life, Shion suggests they take a shower. She reasons that in case the rescuers come, they won't complain that they stink or something, and she wouldn't be able to live with that. Geez, she's really high maintenance. Thinking about it long and hard, Homare agrees to it. After a few minutes, Homare comes up with an alternative shower where the water is directly hit by sunlight to make it warmer. You can even control the water flow. Shion hesitates at first because the shower is so open and being naked in front of them is quite uncomfortable. Or not. She evidently enjoys every minute of it. Asuka and Mutsu control the water for her until they pull too hard, dumping all the water onto her. This is the most refreshing shower Shion has ever had. Later that day, Mutsu helps Homare find some food near the shore. Mutsu realizes that what she learned from school is useless in this situation. Fortunately, Homare is around to teach her. Both of them go into the water to find some shellfish. The first one Mutsu finds in there is a whelk. She's so proud that she collected more, not knowing what some of them were, as long as they were shells. Unexpectedly, the shells start moving, only to discover that some are hermit crabs. She tries to throw them back, but Homare says she prefers the hermit crabs more. Without hesitations, Homare teaches Mutsu how to eat them by simply pulling them out of their shell, where the best part is. Mutsu is so surprised at how harsh it can be for them. Well, lesson learned, Mutsu. Don't get too attached to your food. After collecting enough shellfish, Homare builds a fire. She uses a water bottle to reflect the sun's heat on a wood. Once it flares, Homare gathers dried leaves on top of the wood. She then waves the dry leaves until they burn. Now they can cook the shellfish on a stone. Brilliant! Homare teaches them how to properly eat a shellfish, which they all imitate. And what do you know? They actually taste delicious. They munch on every single one until they realize there are no more left for Homare. But Homare doesn't mind, as she has a whole jar of hermit crabs. I mean, those are her favorites. So, since there is still a fire, Homare cooks her hermit crabs and tells them they are ready to eat once they turn red. The three girls are hesitant to try them since they look like spiders and scorpions combined, but they can't be picky, so they all get one. Perhaps the most comforting thing they can think about is hermit crabs are relatives of the king crab, so they can hope they taste the same. Well, here goes nothing. Wow, they do actually taste delicious, but they're so tiny, it feels like they aren't eating anything. Homare tells them not to worry because this time they will hunt down animals. Is that supposed to be comforting? Apparently, Homare has seen star-shaped footprints by the shore and concludes it's from a squirrel. Mutsu is thinking about how cute that squirrel can be until Homare says it's meat, it's tender, and not very gamey. Right, food, not pets. Now it's time for our next lesson from Homare Sensei. Traps. There are 4 types of primitive traps. Snare trap, they'll die of strangulation. Spear, stabs the creature. Deadfall, crushed to death. And pitfall, drops them in a hole. Strangle, stab, crush, drop. Mercy! But despite their shocked expressions, Homare seems really excited about this. And so they search for tools to use in making their traps. While looking for a thin wire, Asuka stumbles upon a toad. Homare is impressed. Asuka doesn't have to hunt for food because food approaches her. Fair warning, toads have poison on their skin, but it's edible when you remove it. Still, don't eat it. Stick to frogs! Asuka catches it with her skirt, but she starts doubting if she's doing the right thing. For them to eat, they have to kill it. She doesn't know if she has the guts to do that. Suddenly, Homare sees a burrow with animal droppings. She takes one and smells it rapidly. Homare then concludes it's a rabbit, so now they'll switch their prey from squirrel to rabbit. Okay, Mutsu, now's not the time to think about how cute rabbits are. Returning from their short walk, Mutsu informs Shion that that Asuka has caught a toad. However, Asuka's holding an empty skirt. The toad is gone. She tries to cover herself by saying it might have gone unnoticed. Despite Homada's protest of how foolish Asuka is for letting it go, Mutsu smiles and thinks Homada is the dense one. Now that their tools are complete, they are ready to create their snare trap. With some climbing, binding, pushing, hammering, and tying, the trap is already complete. Asuka wants to try it out, so Homada warns her to be careful. Slowly, Asuka places her foot on the trap, and what do you know? Mutsu finally sees a rabbit. Since their trap is good to go, it's time to lure the rabbits. Asuka is so excited to eat some meat and promises herself she will be heartless this time. Homada stops in her tracks and warns everyone to create minimal noise because rabbits have good ears. At this point, they have to split up, and the only advice Homada can give them is, if you can't get food by yourself, you won't survive in the wild. Yes, ma'am. After a few walks, Asuka and Mutsu finally find a burrow. However, the branches are either too thick or too high. Luckily, Mutsu thinks of an alternative, a heavy log used as a weight. Because of their loud noises, Homada approaches them. Seeing what they made, she is pretty impressed. Asuka excitedly tests it again, and yay, it actually works! Now it's time to wait for the rabbit hiding somewhere. Returning from the forest, Asuka, Homada, and Mutsu rest at their tiny shelter. On the other hand, Shion seems tired from all the wood gathering. She asks them how long they must wait until they catch their food. Homada smiles and tells her it's about 2 to 3 days before they can catch one. In that case, Shion asks, what are they supposed to eat for dinner tonight? Shellfish? Again? High maintenance Shion strikes again. For the first time, Homada is flustered and panics. She promises Shion that she will dive into the ocean to fetch some turban shells. Upon hearing that, Shion gets excited while Homada and Asuka have no choice but to grant the princess' demands. Asuka and Homada set forth to dive into the ocean. With the pressure and darkness, Asuka barely sees anything. Meanwhile, Homada uses the air in her lungs to make temporary eyeglasses in the water. However, despite her efforts, she cannot find any turban shells. If she gives up now, Homada will disappoint Shion, and she doesn't want that. Finally, Asuka and Homada return from their hunt. Shion is so happy to see that Homada has gathered a lot of starfish? Losing all hope, Shion wanders mindlessly, dreaming about her turban shells. Still, Homada cooks the starfishes in a pot. They are northern Pacific sea stars, so she's confident they are edible. It even sterilizes itself as it boils. Homada shows the part where they can eat as it's already cooked. However, Shion is still losing it until she sees bruises on Homada's hand. Asuka whispers that Homada tried to get some oysters, but their shells are razor sharp, cutting her. Realizing how ungrateful she's been, Shion is moved into tears and eats the starfish. She tells Homada it's delicious, and she's delighted to know that Shion appreciates it. There is no assurance when they'll get to go home, but one thing is for certain, as long as they stay and work together, they can survive this.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.